Hello, everyone, and welcome to Blogging Theology. And today I'm delighted to talk again to Professor Dr. Mustafa Abu Sway, who is talking to us from Jerusalem in occupied Palestine. You are most welcome, sir. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakumullah khairan. Thank you very much for having me.
Great to have you back. Great to have you back. Dr. Mustafa Abu Sway is the first holder of the integral chair for the study of Imam Ghazali's work at the Holy Al-Aqsa Mosque and at Al-Quds University. He's also a member of the Islamic Waqf Council in Jerusalem and a member of the Hashemite Fund for the restoration of Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock. He's also been a professor of philosophy and Islamic studies at Al-Quds University in Jerusalem since 1996. A few years earlier, over 1,000 years earlier, in the year 638, when the Muslim armies under the command of Khalid ibn al-Walid and Amir ibn al-As besieged Jerusalem, the Patriarch Sophronius, a representative of the Byzantine Empire government and a leader of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, was in charge of the city. After months of siege, Sophronius of Jerusalem, realizing that resistance was pointless, decided to surrender. Today, Dr. Mustafa Abu Sway will tell us about the Pact of Umar, with Patriarch Sophronius, and how this pact explained the terms of the relationship between the Muslims and the Christians and the Jews. And before we continue, is that the Adhan in the background, live in Jerusalem?
It is the Adhan of the Isha from Jerusalem. It is. We have so many mosques, and one of them is Al-Aqsa Mosque.
Wow!
So it's a beautiful thing when you are. I live at a literally walking distance, a good walking distance from Al-Aqsa Mosque. So sometimes I walk back. It's very rare for me to walk to Al-Aqsa Mosque, but sometimes I walk back. On regular days, I park pretty close to Al-Aqsa Mosque. During Ramadan, we usually walk a little bit more because there's no room for all these cars. So Friday, usually I don't take the car. So we do walk a little bit. This morning, for example, there's a very small parking lot at the bottom of the street that leads up to Lions Gate. And so I parked the car. I went walking. I was up walking up the street leading to Lions Gate. Lions Gate means really almost immediate entrance to Al-Aqsa Mosque to the left, Bab al-Asbat. Many names, same gate. And literally you have 4 lions, 2 on each side, what we talk about carved in stone. This is where the name comes. But the remarkable thing is that when I was walking up, I could see an old nun walking down the street with a cane, with difficulty. And I saw a beauty, like the beauty is the beauty of the act itself. A hijabi woman, her baby is in the back in a baby seat in the back seat, and she stopped to and offered to give a ride to the nun. No. And the nun, she went with her. I'm sure the nun was going to one of the churches at the not very far away, because this is very close to the Church of the Gethsemane. Oh. This is because Lions Gate. This is really, according to Christian tradition, Allahu A'lam, that Maryam alayhi salam was born literally around the corner. Everything is in this city carries its own historical, theological weight, and you cannot verify everything. But the birthplace of Mary immediately right behind the like when you enter into Lions Gate. But when you enter into Lions Gate, you enter really Mount of Olives really to your back, which has really. I mean, ask a Christian and they will tell you many things about Jesus Christ, peace upon him, Mary herself. And when you enter, to your right is Saint Anne. This is really the story. It's a massive complex. To your left is Al-Aqsa Mosque. It's a massive place. And then the Al-Aqsa Mosque, these are the northern gates. So while you are walking, if you continue walking in the direction of the center of the old city, to your right, predominantly, these are Christian properties. To your left, you have one entrance to the Aqsa Mosque after the other. So you have Bab al-Asbat next to Lion's Gate. Then you have Bab Hutta. That's number 2 if you start from Lion's Gate. Then King Faisal Gate. So it continues like it to your right until you reach Bab Hutta. It is still Saint Anne. That's how big it is. Then you have the Church of Flagellation. And it was that area was that church was attacked by an extremist settler, and it was a Muslim who defended the church at the time. Within the same period, there was also an attack in the Gethsemane area, and again it was a Muslim vendor who came to the help, because it was really an attack rather than only damaging and what have you. So if you continue after Church of Flagellation, you have Ecce Homo, and then another, that's Latin, then a Greek, I think.
Behold the man, isn't it? It's a quote from
yes.
the Gospels. Behold the man.
Yes.
John's Gospel.
This is why the Church of Flagellation is right next to it. And in Arabic, they will say the prison of Jesus Christ, really. That's what they say. In fact, it seems that the Roman commander, the ruler, was stationed in that building, really, at the time. Of course, there were no churches, of course.
2,000 years ago. Yeah.
And if you continue further to your right is the Austrian hospice. To your left, there is an Armenian building. Practically, you talk about the 4th station, Via Dolorosa. Now, if you are looking at the map of the old city, this is supposed to be the Muslim quarter. And again, I'm highlighting this because really we talk about when they say Muslim quarter, that's a tourist map. It gives the impression that this is purely Muslim. That's not true. All these properties, all these churches that I've mentioned and much more were and still are in that Muslim quarter. In fact, Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi, Saladin, Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi, his quarter is in the Christian quarter. His small mosque is he has a place, a very small room for a retreat associated, there, extremely small, where he would make dhikr, and the iron bars are carved, literally the iron bars. So if you are on the inside, you look the middle of the iron bars that protect the window, you have Allah. So long time ago, this is not done with laser nowadays. I don't know how they have done it, the ironsmith, but you have Allah, you have Muhammad in a second bar, and you have Salah ad-Din on the third bar. That's still part of the... Literally, if you could poke your finger through the wall, that's the church of the Sepulchre Church. Literally, back to back. That's how, and that's the Christian quarter. So these are not really exclusive places. If we talk about the Christian quarter, if we talk about the Muslim quarter, they are not exclusive. Maybe other quarters are exclusive, though there are mosques that are not open for us. There is no real freedom in the city. And I began with that young Muslim woman who gave a right to the nun. Often some of, whether in the Armenian quarter or the Mount Sion, there are still churches there. Often the priests and monks and what have you, they are subject to harassment and abuse by the settlers. That's ongoing over the years, and some of the Christian churches there also they've suffered damage, and the cameras caught the the two settlers who did this, and practically nothing happened to them. That's really
it's striking. In the West, we often don't realize that Christians equally are victims of settler violence, extremist Zionist violence as well, and have been for years and years. It's not just Muslims, actually, and you know, this is not known so much at all in the United States, where many people are Christians, but they don't seem to care so much about their fellow Christian Palestinians, of course, in Jerusalem.
Palestinian Christians, no, but not only Palestinian Christians, any Christian, because we have these churches in Jerusalem have foreign clergy, foreign priests and nuns and what have you. So they could be from Germany, they could be from, you know, so not only those who are Palestinians, and often it's more of we Muslims do not have that kind of harassment, because theologically, long time ago, I think it's entrenched in Maimonides' writings that Muslims are considered monotheists one way or the other from a Jewish perspective. So but there is no room for the Christian per se. So we don't have that kind of harassment, if you will. When we walk around, we don't get usually. I don't remember anyone saying that settlers spit when they pass by a Muslim scholar. Or
these Zionist settlers just spit on Christians, is what you're saying?
Christians, usually Christian monks and priests and what have you. That's what they do. It's well documented.
Yeah, you can see it on YouTube videos and things. It is very well documented. It's just a disgusting practice, really. Absolutely awful.
Yeah. So from day one, really, if I may, because the background to all this is really the Islamic worldview, and in the Islamic worldview, there is something theologically about God is God. You know, this is supposed to be an area where we have no differences, but we do. You know, the biblical narrative. If we have something anthropomorphic, then it's taken more at face value. If there is something that reflects, of course, you need to resort to a metaphorical interpretation, but really not in Genesis, for example, if you talk about God looking for Adam alayhi salam to reprimand him for eating from the prohibited tree, he throws Eve under the bus. He says, "The woman that you gave me." All this.
There was a bus in the Garden of Eden. I didn't catch that bit.
It's the metaphorical. It's the metaphorical bus, of course. But the idea is that God was. It's almost like the narrative is almost like where are you? It's like a hide and seek.
Yes.
It shouldn't be the case. And God creating the universe in 6 days, that's fine. That's in the Quran too. But the idea resting on the 7th day, that's problematic. In the Quran, there's a response to this. It's a long story about the Islamic version of monotheism, and this is why we say the Quran is muhaymin in the sense that if we differ with the people of the book, then the upper hand theologically is for the Quran.
Well, what is muhaymin is a very important word. That is actually a word in the Quranic Arabic itself in Surah 5. I forget which verse, but yeah. What does it mean in English?
Literally, it supersedes.
Right.
This is one way of putting it. So let's say, for example, Eve ate first from the prohibited tree. In the Quran uses the dual suffix pronoun. Okay, then the Quran is muhaymin. It's the Quranic narrative. Eve did not eat first in the Quran. There is nowhere in the Quran you will find any reference to anyone eating first. Both of them, because it's a dual suffix pronoun, both of them were warned. Both of them, were tempted. Both of them succumbed. So it's both, and there are no names there. Okay, and this is very important. So usually I say the very first story of the Quran is a story that liberates woman from the burden of the fall. Absolutely. And we say shared responsibility. In fact, the Quran puts more responsibility on Adam himself, but without saying that he ate first. We never.
Did you just clarify that? You're saying in that verse in the Quran, that the Quran's role is if there are differences between the scriptures of the people of the book we have now and the Quran, then the Quran has that final word. It has that it correctly tells us the real true story of what happened, rather than a false narrative that may be elsewhere. Would that be
because also as part of the Quranic narrative is that the previous revelations, they were revelations. I mean, the people who believed in them in their original version, they were monotheists. I mean, literally, they were monotheists. For those who followed Prophet Moses, peace upon him, those who followed Noah, those who followed Abraham, those who followed Jesus Christ, peace upon him, there was a period when it was absolutely a monotheistic period. But then the vagaries of transmission, as we say, the vagaries of transmission, like one generation after the other, and then you don't know what happened to the original text. Suffice it to say that, for example, today you have the selection of 4 gospels. This is, with utmost respect, we say this. We are the only the only other religion really who still believes in Jesus Christ, peace upon him, because ultimately when we talk about Muslim-Christian relations, Muslim-Christian, Muslim-Jewish, Muslim with the people of the book, it does entail a position vis-a-vis the theologies. Jesus Christ is the word of God to Mary, literally in the Quran. Jesus Christ did perform miracles, and miracles that would include not only healing the blind and the leper, but also quickening the dead. But every time he performs something in the Quran, it is always followed by with the permission of God. With the will. He was not acting.
You're very clear where the miraculous power comes from. It's not innate in Jesus. It comes by the permission of God Himself.
By the same token, when you talk about the Prophet Moses splitting the sea, I mean, we can go like all the 8 billion people that we have today. If we all have sticks, staffs in our hands, and we hit the ocean or nothing will happen, except that, of course, ripple effects, the surface of the water will move, but there will be no splitting of the sea. This is God who is omnipotent, and it's remarkable that every single miracle that takes place at the hands of any prophet, it's always associated with some action on the part of the prophet without the absolute agency of the prophet. And not only the prophets, for example, Maryam alayhi salam, mother of Jesus Christ, peace upon him, when she was at the moment she delivered Jesus Christ, peace upon him, he told her, I mean, there is a voice in the narrative, okay? He called on her from beneath. Some Muslim exegetes said this is the Archangel Gabriel, because that's where with him it began this story, delivering the news. And the other interpretation is that it must be Jesus Christ, to which I subscribe, because practically she took Jesus Christ back to her family, and when they asked her about the whereabouts of this baby, especially that she was known as a pious woman, okay, and her family was a pious family, she pointed to the babe, to the Jesus Christ, peace upon him, and her pointing to him, فأشارت إليه, it was understood as talk to him, talk to this baby. And they exclaimed, how we are going to talk to a baby? And then he spoke. So she did hear him before, and that was the time when he was delivered immediately. What did he say to her? He told her, do not despair, do not be afraid. God created a ravine of water right next to you so that you'll have a sip of water, and shake the palm tree, you will have fresh dates. In Arabic, we have several words and several, different parts of the fruit, the dates, the tamr. In this case, in the Quran, rutaban janiya, rutab, these are let me say that dates begin, of course, a palm tree is both male and female. When it's season, they cut an organ, male from a male tree, and they wrap it around the female branch. They might put a sack on it, and it begins green, then yellow. It begins to have a touch of sweetness. It's still tart. Then brown and moist. That's rutab. Then brown and dry. That's tamar, dates. That the one that you see in the supermarket usually. Why this is important? Because really it puts the date of the birth of Jesus Christ around September. Never in December, because we will nowhere in the region you will have dates, fresh dates. You can have dates throughout the year because it's dry, but fresh dates around September.
What you're saying is the churches have got it wrong for the last 1400 years, ever since they decided on the 25th of December, because that's the date of the Roman god, the god of the sun. I mean, the December the 25th. I mean, it's really a cosmic, kind of a cosmic event, but really it has nothing to do with Jesus Christ upon him. And I found in Jewish writings commenting on this issue, they have chronicles that attest to the fact that Jesus Christ was born early on during that period rather than in December. So there were people who documented things at the time. But the point now, when I mentioned Mary, peace upon him, in the context of prophets doing miracles, performing miracles, she was asked to shake the palm tree and she will have the fresh dates. Now, no one can shake a palm tree, but she was asked to touch it. Really, that's the so there has to be action. Mother of Moses, she has to put the baby in a box and put the baby in the water to save him from the being killed at the hands of the Pharaoh and his soldiers. So you always need to act, and this is something. Just think about the story of Dhul Qarnayn at the end of Surah Al-Kahf. Some people erroneously think that he's Alexander the Great. That's not the Dhul Qarnayn, the one with the two horns. Most probably they were placed on his helmet somewhere, but has nothing to do with Alexander the Great. His story is unique, but has nothing to do with Islam. When he found a people who were almost illiterate in every respect, they could not even understand speech, okay? And they needed a barrier between them and Ya'juj and Ma'juj, Agog and Magog. Of course, I don't want to go into details about but even these people who understood practically nothing in life, that's what, and they told Dhul Qarnayn that we'll give you some compensation, give you some money if you build a barrier between us and Gog and Magog. He did not tell them, sit on the side, I'll do everything with my soldiers. He told them, bring the ore of iron, blow the fire. Once the iron melted, he asked them to bring. Of course, here we would differ about the English word for qitra in Arabic. It has been translated and interpreted really originally in Arabic as copper. It has been also interpreted, the modern Muslim scholars who have, scientific background, they said it must be carbon, because carbon and iron would lead to steel. It would will be there for quite a long enough time, I would say. So this is they needed to act, and this is something about the spirit of action, service, and in one narrative that we have, it's not strictly a hadith, but it's not in the Quran. It's not strictly a hadith. كبير القوم في السفر خادمهم. Let's say the highest ranking person amongst a group of people, when they travel, he is their servant. If you rank high, serve.
I think this recaptures the ethos of Islam, and I think it might be too much, but I think also in family life, really serve. Really, if you need a tranquil home, don't pay lip service to your wife. Do serve your wife, serve the children. If every one of us as human beings, if we restrict our service to the immediate family, then who is going to serve? 1/8 of humanity are special needs. Like 1 billion out of 8 billion are special needs. So we started by saying that the Quran and of course the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, they do have something about the people of the book. Theologically, we spoke a little bit about God, about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but we cannot really exhaust of course, the meaning of suffice it to say that for Imam al-Ghazali, real tawheed, real monotheism is to see everything from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a long theological story. With the prophets, we do have 25 names in the Quran. Practically, we would agree with the people of the book. With the Jews, we would agree on 23 because they do not recognize Jesus Christ, peace upon him. And of course, they don't recognize Prophet Muhammad. There are some Jews who would say, I don't know what this means for them when they say that Prophet Muhammad was a prophet, but for his own community or for the Arabs, or they have such.
For the Gentiles, because I think there were a number of medieval rabbinic commentaries that are quite positive about Prophet Muhammad, upon him be peace, being a prophet, but strictly not for them, but for the Gentiles, because he preached monotheism, Tawheed, so he's recognized as an authentic prophet. But he doesn't supersede Moses, upon whom be peace, for them. Whereas, of course, the Christian Jesus, this demigod who died for their sins, etc., they reject that completely.
In fact, it seems that the prototype prophet in the Quran is Prophet Moses. He's mentioned 136 times. Right. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is mentioned 4 times as Muhammad, once as Ahmad, so 5 times. And you can 136 times direct name is mentioned in Prophet Moses. And of course, the context would include other verses, like, simply think about the story of Prophet Moses and on his way back from Madian, for example, the burning bush story. So you have the narrative is quite vast about Prophet Moses. So we said 136 times with the verses with the name being mentioned there, and I would say that it's I don't know really what would be the total number of the verses addressing Prophet Moses, peace upon him. The Quran is not a self-centered narrative. It cannot have been written by Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. It's impossible, and it's impossible that it was written by any companion, because if you just think about it, today we have people who are fascinated with a scholar, fascinated with, among Jews, amongst Christians, among Muslims. Usually it's that name that will keep showing almost in every paragraph. Not, of course, in the Quran. We said that with the Jews we have out of 25 names, we agree on 23. They might say these certain prophets are patriarchs, but at least we would agree on the names. With the Christians, we have still the 25 names. We agree on 23. On the 24th, which is Jesus Christ, it's a complex picture, because the way theology evolved in Christianity is that Jesus Christ was on him. Became one of the triune, one of the Trinity. In Islam, we do have the faith, we do have the love, and in fact we do have unique traditions. In one tradition, it says that in that hadith, every human being at the moment of birth bit exposed to Satan. Satan pokes him, pokes her, except for Mary and her son. which is a very unique status. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ did not say, and myself, and my family, and no, it was really unique. But this did not lead Muslims ever to think about Jesus Christ, peace upon him, in terms of divinizing Jesus Christ. It's pretty much Neoplatonic. I think this is really the background, which also in Islamic history at one point or the other, this Neoplatonism led some Muslims. Of course, the word Shiite is an umbrella. You have 12 Imamites, you had the Zaydis of Yemen at the time, not to be conflated with Houthis. That's Houthi originally might have come from a family of Zaydis. So we don't talk about the political movement. We talk about the theological position, which is, I would say, in fact, Zaydi scholars have been accepted by Muslim scholars through and through. So and the third major Shiite school is the Ismaili seventh Imamite school, which of course branched to many things, and they were offshoots. At one point they adopted the idea that Ali bin Abi Talib radiallahu anh, and of course his son Al Hussein, not Al Hassan, they have like special position. It ultimately led to the divinization of Ali bin Abi Talib. Indirectly, it's a very problematic narrative, and this is something that they need to work on. So back to Jesus Christ upon him, he is the 24th. Regarding Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, again, I did hear Christian theologians speak about Prophet Muhammad. They said literally in Arabic that Prophet Muhammad was a prophet. Okay, not was that he, that he stopped being a prophet, but so ultimately, how do you reconcile this with remaining, a Christian? I don't know, but I did hear this from Christian theologians, and there are those who, without recognizing Prophet Muhammad, peace upon him, they have literally a position that sees Jesus Christ as a prophet, really, without really subscribing, almost like undoing centuries of development. You talk about, there are theological problems whether God suffers, okay? Like theopaschism, that's a serious issue. God gets tired in the Old Testament. He does not get tired in the Quran. Of course, we should not attribute anything like that to God. But that's part of the theology. As I said, we have the belief in Jesus Christ. He, in fact, in the Quran, there's a very unique position. God chose Adam, and then he chose Noah, and then he chose Al Ibrahim, the family of Abraham, and then he chose Al Imran. إن الله اصطفى آدم ونوحا وآل إبراهيم وآل عمران على العالمين. These were chosen over all humanity, and we know that Adam was a real beginning, okay, and for those who believe that we have evolved on our own from dead matter, then they are not putting the 100 billion neurons into good use. This is, I think it's very naive on the part of scientists, really, to say this, that we have, it's a long story, maybe one day, but I know that there are those who are more equipped to address this issue. But again, the story of Islam and science. So Adam is the real beginning. Noah is another beginning, not like Adam, but there is another beginning because there was a flood, and those who were not on the ark they drowned in the flood, and that would include one of Noah's children. And here we have another difference with the people of the book in terms of the story of the flood, and it has nothing to do with Gilgamesh, the Epic of Gilgamesh. You know that the many Western scholars would say the author of the Old Testament was influenced by the Epic of Gilgamesh. This is the oldest known, Mesopotamian, in fact, the oldest known epic around the globe so far. And Gilgamesh wanted to immortalize himself ultimately through that story, but he could not find the elixir of life that he looked for. And there was a story of flood documented there. And then they said that the author of the Quran was influenced by the story of the Old Testament. Definitely, I would rule out the Epic of Gilgamesh. Why not? Simply there was a flood, and it was there was a reference to it in the Old Testament, and there is a reference to it in the Quran. And ultimately, the Quranic story has the upper hand, because one of the children of Noah did choose deliberately to be outside the ark. His father pleaded with him to hop into the ark because he knew that that day was the day when everyone would who would be outside the ark would drown. And he chose to resort to a mountain, resorting to the material causes in the face of divine punishment. It does not really help. Just think about ultimately the day of judgment, when everything unfolds. That's it. There's nothing that you can do. You can do something about the signs of the day of judgment if there is a moral outcome. But if it's a cosmic thing, if the mountains are blown, if the seas are set ablaze, there's nothing you can do about it. That's it. And by then, belief doesn't really work. If you see it coming, that's it. One needs to adopt the faith, be truly monotheistic, and accept the messengership of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. In the Quran itself, there are verses that directly talk about how to deal with the people of the book. For example, in terms of dialogue, وَلَا تُجَادِلُ أَهْلَ الْكِتَابِ إِلَّا بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ. Do not argue with the people of the book except with the best, the most beautiful fashion. So this sets the tone for the way we talk with each other. We have serious differences, but this does not really rule out the possibility of convivencia. Convivencia, the living together. Convivencia, of course, you talk about alliance of world civilizations, and convivencia is part of the narrative. It's an Islamic paradigm, and it existed usually we celebrate Andalusia as the most beautiful. It's true that it did exist there, but think about the original school where things began. I'm saying this because the Pact of Umar himself is the product of the school of the Prophet ﷺ. He must have witnessed. In fact, in the narrative, we know that Umar ibn Khattab was a witness to the meeting, if you will, between the Christian delegation of Najran and the Prophet ﷺ in Medina. And the Christian delegation of Najran traveled north. This is an area right between Yemen and Saudi Arabia, like southwest Arabian Peninsula. Traveling to Medina, let's say it took a couple of weeks, 10 days, couple of weeks on animals. So they must have arrived very tired, and they needed to rest. Their animals needed to rest. And there were no hotels, no motels at the time. It's the mosque. The Christian delegation of Najran was hosted inside the mosque. So if we have a dialogue with Christians inside the mosque, we are not really doing something out of the ordinary. This is something that is entrenched in the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And, hospitality, whatever was, the idea is hosting them in the true sense, They had, the dialogue, and Umar ibn Khattab was witness to this, so he must have absorbed all the things that took place right before him. We said in the Quran, one thing is how to have dialogue. Number two, in Surah Al-Ma'idah, this is chapter 5 in the Quran, we have more direct, practical things. For example, the food of the people of the book is lawful for you. وَطَعَامُ أَهْلِ الْكِتَابِ حِلٌّ لَكُمْ. And your food is lawful for them. The issue is, so it is. It goes in both directions. I'm sure that when they, I have been invited by, for example, by Christians in my life many times, and they made sure that they, once it was in Berlin, and that family went out of their way to buy halal food, and so I trust. I mean, there's no way, there's no reason at all to mistrust people. Their food is lawful. It goes beyond this in terms of jurisprudence. But our food, what it means is that we can share a meal. And sharing a meal means we have the social fabric is a beautiful social fabric. A fast pace of life means that we do not interact the way we used to interact. This is not about Muslim Christian. I was asked at the end of a lecture whether, about the nature of the relationship today between Muslims and Christians, for example, here. And I said that fast pace of life is catching up with us. People hit the road very early in the morning to avoid traffic. You return from work exhausted. And nowadays, many women work outside the house. She could be a school teacher. Nevertheless, she needs to hit the road early and return late. She still needs to prepare food for the family, even if he lives up to his to the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ used to do many things. He used to patch his own clothing, fix his own shoes, put things in order, cut the meat, milk the she-goat, so many. And in one hadith, the language is very general. He used to do house chores. So the idea is people do not have enough time for each other the way they don't dedicate, really. They don't, and they should. They should. This is really a serious problem. Archbishop Emeritus Munib Yunan from a Protestant church. He was the Archbishop of the evangelical church here. It doesn't mean it's like evangelicals in the United States that who support Zionism, and that's not the case. But he told me, because he's a refugee originally from the 1948 area, and he was raised in the old city, and he told me that in the old days, especially during Ramadan, look, now we talk about a Christian family who, like, it means that this is really was across the board. Each family would send a plate of the food that they have prepared, almost a potluck dinner without getting together. Like, even if you stay at home, you send, a little bit of the food that you have to your neighbors, and your neighbors will send a little bit of food that they have prepared to you. So you have few plates that you did not prepare yourself, and this is something beautiful. This reminds me, since we talk about the old days, I was born in 1958. That's a long time ago. Alhamdulillah. When I was still being breastfed, we had a Christian neighbor, and she had a daughter. Her name is Lamis. The ladies would get together. They were really, homemakers, and they had plenty of time. The husbands, our fathers, Lamis' father and my father, they had the same position. They were both high-ranking officers in the Jordanian army. And we were living at the time in the Zarqa. This is a city close to Amman, northeast of Amman a little bit, not a long distance. And there was an officers' camp there. But being together, when my mother breastfed me, she also breastfed Lamis, the Christian girl. And literally in Islamic jurisprudence, Lamis and I became sister and brother. Here we have, it's a milk relationship, not, it's a beautiful, I love this family story. So the food of the people is lawful for you. What else? The chaste woman of the people of the book is also lawful for Muslim men. And it means that the maternal family could be Christian, could be Jewish. And we have many people who are like that. There's a beautiful relationship with the maternal family. And had it not been for the Zionist project and the occupation, I think there are or there were at least, they continue. But there are few cases, by the way, where people who know each other, could be school, could be work, they ultimately get married. The problem with the if a Muslim man, for example, marries a Jewish woman here in Palestine, there is a settler organization that aims at separating, like literally separating the family, taking the children away from them, taking the woman back, something like that. And it would be a problem if the woman remains Jewish. Her children are literally considered, technically speaking, Jewish. They could be conscripted for the army. It's an interesting part. Historically, this was not really a problem when we speak about the Quranic verse. It means simply that if you are sure of the society at large, if you are sure, but there is something that I would like to say. Usually, if this happens on a large scale, it's going to be at the expense of Muslim women. Let me just be frank about it. If it does take place on a large scale, it's going to be at the expense of Muslim women. In fact, I encourage people to marry not only a Muslim, Muslim man with Muslim woman, but if they could have also the background being also compatible, that will be an added dimension. Meaning, if both of them, for example, speak, let's say Arabic, and we talk about the West, then the child might have some Arabic as part of the upbringing. If one of them is, if belongs to, let's say, an Arab with, let's say, French or an American woman, a Muslim still, but with no Arabic at all, most probably children will have English and no Arabic as part of their upbringing. So you have that dimension. We talk about the natural context for a language. You could still, learn something at school later on. It's not the same, as you well know. Business, yes. Also, you could do business, and the Quran also speaks about trust. You could trust some of the people of the book. You could trust with a ton of gold. I'm translating liberally, really, qintara. And there are those amongst them you cannot trust with a penny. Flip the coin. There are Muslims, of course, you can trust with a ton of gold, and there are Muslims you cannot trust with a penny. We have also, there are, a Muslim society is not a society of angels, definitely not. And I would say that people who have high moral caliber, they could get along even across the the border. Like I'm talking about Muslim and Christian and Jew. I'm not talking about, of course, we have to get rid of this occupation, but the idea is, in general, it is doable, and you can see how those Jewish youngsters and elders who demonstrate protesting the genocide in Gaza, and they believe that, of course, they will uphold "do not kill," "thou shall not kill." I mean, this is really a commandment. It's a mitzvah, and it should be upheld. And I commend them for their position. These are, the people that you could also relate to as a socio-political context, really. Now, in the Sunnah of the Prophet, we spoke about hosting the Christian delegation of Najran. There are many things that we can speak about. One of them is that the Prophet ﷺ himself, when there was a funeral, he stood up for the funeral, and it was a Jew. And I think this is, very respectful. And he was told that it's a Jew, and he said, "Isn't it a soul?" Okay, and this really is also part of the relationship. You could offer condolences. You could, if your Christian neighbor, for example, has a happy occasion, you can congratulate your Christian. You should. It's not that you can. So this is something, part of the background. Umar radiallahu anh was raised, in that school, and of course he was the second caliph. You began by mentioning Patrick Sophronius, so we can move. The Muslims moved north. In fact, they began moving north during the time of the Prophet. They reached Tabuk. This is really almost the edge of the Holy Land. I did read about the definition of the Holy Land reaching Tabuk. This is maybe some 700 kilometers away north of Medina, and that's really south of the border with Jordan today. So Muslims moved to Ash-Sham. Ash-Sham is the area. Today we talk about Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, Palestine. But at the time, we talk about the Roman Empire was still. Hercules himself met with some companions who were not really Muslim at the time. They were in Damascus. They were taken to Jerusalem. He spoke to them. He asked them about Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. And Abu Sufyan, who later on became Muslim, he wanted to say something but he did not want people to know that he lied. That's the only thing that prevented him from saying anything about Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. So Hercules that's really the narrative. And of course the Quran itself not prophesized. The Prophet ﷺ would tell us about a prophecy about the future, but the Quran informed us that the future will bring victory of the Romans against the Persians. غلبت الروم في أدنى الأرض وهم بعد غلبهم سيغلبون في بضع سنين. So the idea is that the Quran said that the believers will celebrate this. At least these are Christians. This is the idea. And I did not mention this, but the Christians, the monks in the Quran are described positively, that they know the truth. They are humble. These are some of the things that are mentioned in the Quran. At any rate, the Muslims reached Jerusalem, besieged Jerusalem, and Patrick Sophronius ultimately demanded that Umar ibn Khattab himself, radiallahu anh, would travel all the way to Jerusalem to receive the keys of the city, as we say, from Patrick Sophronius. So Umar did one camel one servant alternating on the camel. So the servant would ride once, and Umar would pull the camel, and the servant would be on the earth. They alternate, and when they arrived in Jerusalem, it was the other way around. So Umar was not on the camel. There's a mountain, and I tend to point now and make it very clear that I'm pointing. The Al-Aqsa Mosque is this way, okay? And in this, in the opposite, not exactly the opposite direction. So if you talk about the distance, you talk about less than a mile. You have a mountain. It is called in Arabic until today Jabal al-Mukabbir. Jabal is mountain. Al-Mukabbir is literally the etymology of al-Mukabbir. Is the narrative is that Umar ibn Khattab, when he arrived in Jerusalem, arrived like from the south, and he should come from the south anyhow. This is really, he came northbound, and when he was on top of the mountain and he saw Jerusalem, he said Allahu Akbar. This is why it is called Jabal al-Mukabbir. So even the name of the mountain holds part of the history. Once he was immediately, Umar al-Khattab, in the vicinity of the city. Umar al-Khattab is known to be, this is the second caliph. And I hope that Muslims know this. I hope that Christians and Jews and others would learn this about Umar al-Khattab. He used to wear literally patched clothing. His many patches. And his companions wanted him to wear something nice for the occasion. They even wanted him to ride one of the stories, ride a mule into the city, like dressed up and what have you. He couldn't really do that. He did, I think he did. Maybe it seems that he changed, but he changed back to his clothing, very humble, the humble Umar ibn Khattab. I think this is very important historically to know that here we have a caliph. He was the head of the state, and within 100 years, Muslims basically reached, all the way today to Afghanistan, and westward all the way to Spain. Okay, and here we have a head of state like the caliph, who would not wear even something that does not have patches, that is not worn out really. And in Jerusalem, let's begin by Patriarch Sophronius invited. Some of these are three major events. One of them is that Patriarch Sophronius invited Umar ibn Khattab to pray at the Sepulchre Church, and Umar ibn Khattab declined, citing his fear that future Muslim generations would claim this as a right. And I think this is when you are in office, you are the political power. Just simply keep a healthy distance from the religious space of the other. The religious space is a very sensitive issue, and I'm saying this because we have settlers really being accompanied by Israeli security forces intruding on Al-Aqsa Mosque in the morning and in the afternoon, every day, Sunday to Thursday, not on Fridays and not on.
What are they? Sorry, as an outsider, what is their agenda? These settlers, when they're going to Al-Aqsa Mosque, what are they seeking to achieve, and why is it a problem for the Muslims? Do you think?
Well, I mean, ultimately, you have politicians and you have the everyday person. Some of them are English-speaking and American, for example. So amongst the politicians, Uri Ariel, who was the Minister of Agriculture, is an Israeli minister, of course. He spoke about, demolishing the Dome of the Rock to establish the Third Temple. That American lady spoke clearly in her American accent about really this has to go. I mean, the Dome of the Rock, it has to go. So they don't really such extremists do not hide their agenda. In the early 80s, I think the early 80s, Israel caught a group of settlers who had rockets, and they wanted to hit the Dome of the Rock with these rockets. I would say, alhamdulillah, it didn't work, when they caught them in time. You will find people who, so they don't have, many of them, there is a, I think Amit Hakwan, I wrote an article for Middle East Eye about this member of the Israeli Knesset, the Israeli parliament, who wants to literally propose a law to divide Al-Aqsa Mosque, whereby the Jews will take 2/3, the Dome of the Rock and the northern part, and Muslims will have the Qibli, the southernmost building. And he is kind enough to say that if Muslims would like to still come and pray at the Dome of the Rock, they would still permit us. Okay, that's... So these are, so you have a minister from the cabinet, you have a member of the parliament, you have the everyday person. It doesn't look good. I mean, let me put it this way. It really doesn't look good. And it's quite unfortunate. Somehow I still believe that if their leadership becomes really sane, which I don't see it at this stage, if they choose sane leadership who would really understand the meaning of respecting international law, it's the Palestinian state in the West Bank, including East Jerusalem and the Gaza Strip, is in the interest of every single one.
Should we look at the Pact of Umar then?
Yes.
In the year 638?
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah.
But the other thing is that Umar al-Khattab went to the area of Al-Aqsa Mosque, and he literally participated in cleaning the area. It was a dumping ground.
Yeah.
One can understand this from a Christian theological perspective. In fact, historically, at one point, some Israelis they tried to say that that in the southeastern corner of Al-Aqsa Mosque, the subterranean halls that are called Al-Marwani now, historically also being called Solomon's Stables, but really it's Al-Marwani. There is an upper room, still subterranean, and they said that there are artifacts that belong to Jesus Christ, and the heads of the Christian churches issued a statement saying that we have nothing inside Al-Aqsa Mosque, like nothing belongs to the Christians inside Al-Aqsa Mosque. Theologically, they did not want to have anything, and politically, they don't have anything. Of course, they do support us. Every now and then, the many church leaders, priests, and what have you, they come to Al-Aqsa Mosque when things are, when things are bad, which it happens from time to time. So back to the Pact of Umar. The Pact of Umar is really the agreement that was concluded by Umar ibn Khattab and Sophronius, and really this is the essential part. The essential part is assuring the Christians of the sanctity of their holy places, the freedom of worship, and of course you would not assure them the sanctity of their holy places without assuring them of the sanctity of their own lives. Of course, this is really given. I believe this is the essence of the Pact of Umar, as simple as it is. Now, if we in this text, okay, in this text of Ibn al-Batriq. Ibn al-Batriq, it could be the son of the patriarch, and his text, which is similar to the text of al-Yaqubi, it has the following. Even for those amongst the viewers, who would watch this, even if they don't know Arabic, just simply look at the size of the text, because this will matter almost instantly when we move to later texts. Simply it says here, Bismillah, min Umar ibn al-Khattab li ahl Madinat Ilya. So in the name of God, from Umar ibn al-Khattab to the people of the city of Ilya Capitolina, this is the name of the city at the time. إنهم آمنون على دمائهم. They are assured, the safety of their bloods, meaning their life, وأولادهم, their children, وأموالهم, their money, and their churches. They will not be, meaning the churches will not be destroyed, لا تهدم ولا تسكن, and nobody will be allowed, meaning Muslims will not be allowed to take them for residence. And he وأشهد شهودا. In other texts you will find the names of the witnesses to this. This is really a Christian who died in the year 328 of the Islamic Hijri year. You say here لا تسكن. We have many mosques that they are like pre-1948 mosques. Some mosques remained in the hands of Muslims. Some mosques became parts of the yishuv, of the kibbutz, of the whatever is the case, and they have changed the use of these mosques, so they're not your mosque anymore. I can give concrete examples. A mosque in Beersheba is a museum today. A mosque in a small area north of al-Fahm, called, this is of course the land itself, the Muslim cemetery is still there, the mosque is still there, and it is used as a carpentry. A mosque that is used as a barn, cafes, a city hall, a residence. So this is not, of course, all of them. There is an intact mosque not very far from, it's in West Jerusalem, but really it's a 5 minutes walk from Damascus Gate. You go on Prophet's Road, almost to the end of the road. It's not very, very long. By car, literally, it's almost like a 1 minute by car. Let's say 2 minutes, maybe 3, but depending on traffic. Midnight, I think it's 1 minute drive, and there's a whole mosque that is still intact since 1948, but it's not open for Muslims for prayer. It is still there. So it's very important that this text about it has details, but let's look at the other text to see the difference. Now, 200 years later, 250 years later, Ibn Asakir, who died in the year 571, has the following text, and you can immediately see the size of the text, how it really it's very large. And let's see what's in the I think this is really when we start having a difference between the Pact of Umar and what became known historically as the conditions of Umar, and these are absolutely, they have nothing to do with Umar ibn Khattab. It's a historical addition. Okay, anyone who deals with how texts evolve over time, this is one case. The text is from the narration of Abdullah ibn Ghanam that Umar ibn Khattab wrote, that the Christians wrote to him that the Christians wrote now. Remember the previous one, Umar ibn Khattab, this is really what he gave as a pact. Here the Christians gave him the following pact, saying in it, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The Christians usually do not say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Okay? No. This is really هذا كتاب لعبد الله عمر. This is of course the kitab, it could be a book, but really here it's a letter really. Meaning to Abdullah bin Umar, Amir al-Mu'mineen. That's no problem with that. He's the Prince of the Faithful, if you will. From Nasara Ahl al-Sham, from the Christians of al-Sham, all of them. This is a bit problematic because usually the major cities, each city had its own pact really. Not that they changed in nature, but they would have a formal pact. When you came to us, لما قدمتم علينا سألناكم الأمان, we asked you for safety for ourselves لأنفسنا, for our families وأهالينا, for our monies, our properties وأموالنا, وأهل ملتنا, and the people of our faith, meaning the Christians, على أن نؤدي الجزية عن يد ونحن صاغرون, that we will give the what do you call it, the poll tax, or the a tax that was imposed on the able adult Christians. عن يد ونحن صاغرون, this is Quranic. Okay, it cannot be the case. It's Quranic. How would they basically include a part of the Quran in their text? And they said in this, وعلى ألا نمنع أحدا من المسلمين أن ينزل كنائسنا في ليل أو نهار, and that we will not really prevent any Muslim from staying at our churches, whether they arrive at night or during the day. ونضيفهم فيها ثلاثا, and we will host them for 3 days, because this was customary amongst the Arabs, that if you have a guest, they say the guest could stay for 3 days and 1/3 of a day. I mean, that's really, but this is, ونطعمهم الطعام, we'll feed them, ونوسع لهم أبوابها, and we will basically open the doors, literally to have broadened the doors and open them. ولا نضرب فيها بالنواقيس ضربا خفيفا, we will not ring the bells except very lightly. ونرفع في أصواتنا بالقراءة, and we will not raise our voices in recitation of the Gospels and whatever hymns that they have. ولا نأوي فيها ولا في شيء من هذه جاسوسا لعدو لكم, and we will not host, will not really allow, we will not in any of our houses or the churches a spy for your enemy. So they will not basically host a spy who basically spies for the enemy of the Muslims. ولا نحدث كنيسة ولا دارا ولا صومعة ولا قلاية, and we will not establish new churches, new monasteries, religious, basically. There are 4 kinds of Christian religious places here, and we will not renew that which disintegrates of the churches. ولا نجدد ما خرب منها, ولا نقصد الاجتماع فيما كان منها من خطط المسلمين وبين ظهرانيهم, and we will not basically deliberately, that's my understanding, of getting together or really in these churches if they are included in the plans of Muslims, or whatever this means, and amongst the Muslims, we will ولا نظهر شركا ولا ندعو له إليه, and we will not really show association with God, and we will not call for it. ولا نظهر صليبا على كنائسنا, and we will not show crosses on our churches. ولا في شيء من طرق المسلمين وأسواقهم, and will not show the cross in the path of Muslims and their markets. ولا نتعلم القرآن, and we will not learn the Quran. ولا نعلمها أولادنا, will not teach it to our children, which is really, this would be the contrary. This would be the opposite. There's an elderly Christian Coptic man in Egypt who, in his village, he is the one who teaches the Quran to the Muslim children. Okay,
amazing.
So, there are Christians historically who literally memorize the Quran. They went to the, with the other kids and memorized the Quran. ولا نمنع أحد من ذوي قرابات دخول في الإسلام إذا أراد ذلك, and will not prevent anyone from our relatives to become Muslim, enter into Islam if she wants to. وأن نجز مقادم رؤوسنا, and we'll basically shave the hair of our, the front of our heads, a sign that they are Christians. ونشد الزنانير في أوساطنا, and they basically will tie special colored belts or really pieces of cloth on their waist. ونلزم ديننا, but we'll stick to our religion. ولا نتشبه المسلمين في لباسهم ولفياتهم, will not imitate the Muslims in the way they dress or the way they look. ولا في سروجهم, not even the way they have their horse saddles, that they will have different kind of horse saddles. ولا في سروجهم. ولا في نقش خواتيمهم فننقشها نقشا عربيا, and we will not have Arabic either words or whatever, being imprinted on our rings. ولا نتكنى بكناهم, and we will not name our children or ourselves or whatever. We will not name ourselves by names that they call, like the nicknames. So, for example, almost everyone in the even in pre-Islamic Arabia, people had nicknames, and so they said we will not have the same nicknames, that will have something different. One of the officials, one of the leaders really of the a Center for Christian Liberation Theology in Jerusalem, his name is Omar himself. Okay, so it reflects also a Christian celebration of Umar ibn Khattab, really. And I think essentially this is really the story. Well, I hope that we will get to the impact, let's say, of or how it is celebrated. The second paragraph here, it is incumbent on ourselves that we will respect them even a little bit more than respecting them, that we will glorify them, and we will stand up for them when from where we are seated, like giving them our seats, and we will guide them on the road. We will not really peek into their houses. We will not have weapons or a sword, and we will not carry it, whether in the city nor when we are traveling in the land of the Muslims. That we will not sell wine. We will not show it. We will not show fire along with the funeral processions. That's the meaning, along with our dead in the path of the Muslims. Really, the fire itself, I mean, there is if it's night, then you need some light to see the path, but really during the day, I don't know of any fire You would know probably better than I do. I don't know of any fire that is carried around along with the dead. I don't know of anything like that.
No, never know.
We will not ونرفع أصواتنا مع جنائزهم, and they will not really raise our voices during the funerals, and we will not be next, to the Muslims. Like what the meaning here, it seems that we will not have cemeteries next to the Muslims. ونضرب أحد المسلمين will not hit any Muslim. We will not have slaves that are already being enslaved by the Muslims. That we have made all these conditions upon ourselves and the people of our faith. If we violate this, then there is no dhimma, there is no protection for us, and there is no pact for us. There is no عهد. فلا ذمة لنا والعهد قد حل لكم منا ما يحل لكم من أهل الشقاق والمعادة. Then you are free, as it is, that you do with us whatever you do with the rebels. That's really the meaning of the. This is from Ibn Asakir, Tahdhib Tarikh Dimashq, the history of concise history of Damascus, and also the same text, Mujir Din al-Hanbali, Imam al-Tabari, etc. It did say here at the very last part, ذكر أن عقد الصلح كتب على جبل الطور في القدس. It has been mentioned that this pact was concluded on Mount of Olives, Jabal al-Tur, Mount of Olives in Jerusalem, because the Tur also could sometimes be mentioned about Mount Sinai. Okay, that's also a Tur, but here is about Mount of Olives in Jerusalem, which is you do have a mosque that has in the land of the mosque on Mount of Olives. It's the Christians come and celebrate the ascension of Jesus Christ from a Christian perspective. Okay, the Church of Ascension, and right next to that mosque there is a maqam for Rab'a al-Adawiyya, the Muslim Sufi woman from Iraq. Allahu Alam if she is really buried there, but there's beautiful poetry ascribed to her. But this is really one text, and you can see immediately how the text has so many conditions, and this could not be the case of the original pact of Umar. Just simply to say it already, I would say just simply go with the shortest text. This is really the safest approach. Dr. Musa al-Basit from Al-Quds University many years ago wrote about the Pact of Umar, and I wrote the introduction to that book at the time, and it's the same thing. It's obvious that these conditions, شروط العهد العمرية, these conditions are absolutely not original, really, and some of these things are obviously. I don't think that Umar ibn Khattab really had any problem with the Arabic being printed on their rings, for example. I don't think that they had Arabic as a major. I don't think it was their language at the time. I think Greek was. I think it was Greek. Okay, the culture at the time, and we talk. Yes, there are many churches right now in Jerusalem, in the Holy Land, but at the time, I believe that it was still the Greek Orthodox. That's my understanding.
Mm-hmm.
The text of Ibn al-Jawzi, it seems that it corresponds to the original shortness. Let's say the wording is different, But really he says here that Umar, meaning plainly Umar, but Ibn Khattab was added, that he wrote to the people of Jerusalem here. He used Bayt al-Maqdis rather than Ilya. That's a development. That I have given you safety. قد إني قد أمنتكم على دمائكم, your blood, meaning your life, أموالكم, your money, your property, ذراريكم, your offspring. Here it should be understood. صلاتكم. This is a reference to the churches. Okay. It could be a direct reference to the prayer itself, but it's given in the Quran. There are 4 types. One of them is the mosque, but you talk about churches, monasteries, and also synagogues that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has protected through basically checking people against each other. ولولا دفع الله الناس بعضهم ببعض. ومن أراد منكم أن يلحق بأمتي فله الأمان. And anyone that wants to follow his people, then they have the safety, they have the assurance. Meaning, I don't think that this is explained here. First of all, لا تكلفون فوق طاقتكم. Before that, you will not be tasked with anything that is above your ability. The second phrase here, or whatever the number of the phrase, it's like number maybe 4 or 5. ومن أراد منكم الحق بأمتي فله الأمان. It seems that for those who would like to leave the city and reach whatever part of the Christendom, let's call it. It does not say Christendom really here. Ummatihi, the nation, the Christian nation, the Christian people, or whatever. They have safety, and they will pay kharaj كما على دائن فلسطين. This is more likely that they will pay a part of what the yield of the land yields, like the other cities of Palestine. As I said earlier, cities have pacts, and there was no nation state. There was no. So each city on its own. So in different texts in Islamic jurisprudence, you'll find that whatever they paid, also they paid in exchange for protection because they don't serve in the army. So that's also part. Now, Mujir Din al-Hamari died in the year 927. So literally we talk about 500 years ago. And by the way, subhanallah, this is the only Muslim scholar, the only Muslim who is buried on the edge of the road near the Church of the Gethsemane. I don't know why he was buried there. Okay, see, here we have a group of churches. We have Greek, we have the Church of Gethsemane itself is Latin. You have a Russian church, the golden domes, a little bit more up on the mountain. So there are still several churches, and he's the only one who's buried right on the edge of the road there. So inshallah, when you come to Jerusalem, I will show you. Mujir Din al-Hanbali al-Ulaymi al-Maqdisi, he copied a text from Tabari, who said that it's really from the chain of narrators from Abu Hazim and Abi Uthman and Khalid wa Ubadah that Umar ibn Khattab صالح أهل الإلياء بالجابي وكتب لهم. That this is the text of the pact of Umar. I would like to highlight only one thing. There are, things that I can speak about, but I would like to. I already highlighted this by making it bold letters. ولا يسكن بإيليا معهم أحد من اليهود. That no Jews will be allowed to live with them in Jerusalem. Okay. Why I highlighted this? Because Jews were already prevented from living in Jerusalem for a few centuries. Okay, that's very important.
Yeah.
They were not allowed to live in Jerusalem for a few centuries.
Yeah.
Furthermore, we know that historically 100% Jews came back to Jerusalem or returned to Jerusalem. They started living in Jerusalem after these centuries during Islamic reign. This is really absolutely the case. The only question is when. This text says that they shouldn't. And this would basically make it that why this text? We know from the Geniza manuscripts, there's like a trove, a cache of Jewish manuscripts that were buried in Cairo. Thousands upon thousands of manuscripts in different languages, different topics. And Professor Cohen from Princeton University is an expert on the Geniza manuscripts. And he is the one who, the source of the historical event whereby the Jews wrote to Umar ibn Khattab to allow them to live in Jerusalem, and he obliged. Some Muslim scholars would say it's only 17 families, or doesn't make much difference. 17 families, 34 families, one family. The idea is that they started living in Jerusalem at one point. I know that we are sick and tired of the occupation. So let's put it this way. This text is not a product of the occupation. But why people might subscribe to such a text is because they are, they face all this misery, and they might find some comfort in this text. But we shouldn't really, subscribe to a forged text, because these are historical developments, really. This is exactly what it is. We spoke earlier about the vagaries of transmission, and we would be basically knowingly accepting a condition that was not there. So in the Geniza and the Jewish manuscripts, they were allowed back in the city. They would be also prevented from living in the city during the Crusades, the Crusaders' time. So for 92 years, the Jews were not allowed to live in the city. One family only, a Jewish family, it seems their origin is from Tunisia, but doesn't make much difference, called As-Sabbagh. And As-Sabbagh could be also a Muslim family. In fact, not only could be. My classmate from high school was also from a Sabbagh family. So we have in this country the Arab Jews, the Arab Christians, and the Arab Muslims. Sometimes we have the same family name. It's not only sometimes, quite often we do have the same family name, which means that it could be the case that members of the family became Christian, became Muslim at one point. That's really the case. But the name of the family is a reflection of the profession. So, for example, if you have blacksmith in English or in Arabic, Haddad, we know that you have Jewish, you have Christian, and you have Muslim family names that have blacksmith, Al-Haddad. Okay? In their case, As-Sabbagh, they were literally the pure version of the historical dry cleaners. That's the whole story. That's what it seems this is the only reason why they allow them. So when you talk about the Islamic rule, they were free to live in the city. In fact, some of the texts in Arabic say that they lived, after Umar ibn Khattab allowed them back in the city, they lived in what became known as the Jewish market, Suq al-Yahud, and I take it as the southern part of the city, where later on you have the Jewish neighborhood, which was expanded immediately after 1967. We are separated by like a couple of weeks, really, literally, from June 5th, within 2 days, the historical Moroccan quarter was literally demolished. Bulldozer demolished centuries old neighborhood to expand that open space, but also allowing room for the Jewish quarter to be expanded, along with the homes, a mosque and a school, Al-Fadiliya. So this is really part of, as I said, there are many things that I can talk about. I wanted to highlight this particular. There is another, maybe another text. This is, of course, look at the date when it became known. And I would like to highlight in this particular text maybe the language itself. Of course, for example, it begins with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, which is not really typical, but ultimately it does sound like the Friday sermon. وَاحْمُدُوا اللَّهَ عِبَادَ اللَّهِ عَلَى هَذِهِ النِّعْمَةِ. It sounds like a Friday, at the beginning of a Friday sermon. And then it says that this is what Umar ibn Khattab wrote to the respectful, honorable Patriarch Sophronius. Usually they would not do these things at the time. They would not write this about Umar ibn Khattab himself. Like the beginning, it begins with Kitab Umar ibn Khattab, nothing honorific here, no honorific titles, plain Umar ibn Khattab. Then the Patriarch itself is a title. Al-Mubajjal al-Mukarram. This is Sophronius. He is the Patriarch of the Melkite faith in Tur Zayta, in the Mount of Olives, really. بمقام القدس الشريف. This is Ottoman, مقام القدس الشريف. I know that the language still, describing the sepulchre church with the word that is really used for trash in Arabic, simply playing with the word, is not appropriate at all. And I think maybe the next. Okay, now we have mistakes in Arabic. Look at you don't have to know Arabic, but the وَيَكُونُ مُعَافًا, that's wrong in Arabic. Umar ibn Khattab would never make such a mistake. وَالْغَفَرْ, الْخَفَرْ, that's, first of all, it's wrong dictation, but also it's not that it was used at the time. Grammatically, dirham should dirhaman, and I think there is also the كل من قرأ, this is colloquial. This is really a problem. It's full with grammatical and linguistic mistakes that anyone who knows Arabic, the Arabs, Muslims or non-Muslims of the time of Umar al-Khattab, they would not make such a mistake. Not only such a mistake, they will not really make mistakes. So obviously the text of this is 1953, a text that was published by the Orthodox Church in 1953. Now, maybe just simply to conclude, a word or two about the impact of the Pact of Umar. We still celebrate the Pact of Umar. We celebrate the Pact of Umar in the sense that it does influence our relationship together as Muslims and Christians, and we take pride, and this is. I remember that a text of the Pact of Umar was displayed by this Christian Liberation Theology Center at the old offices in the Sheikh Jarrah in Jerusalem, and I believe that even the Patriarch, the Greek Orthodox Patriarch at the time also even went as far as praising Yasser Arafat, really, with almost like Yasser Arafat playing the role of Umar ibn Khattab. But what we have today, really, on the ground is the Hashemite custodianship. The royal Hashemite family, they continue to support Jerusalem. They have done this for a little bit more than 100 years. It's ongoing, alhamdulillah. And the Awqaf that runs the affairs of Al-Aqsa Mosque and all the Islamic Awqaf, the Islamic Waqf endowments. This means soup kitchens, it means colleges, it means schools inside Al-Aqsa Mosque, outside Al-Aqsa Mosque, many of these schools. But first and foremost is Al-Aqsa Mosque itself. The Waqaf are part of the Islamic Religious Affairs and Holy Places part of the ministry, Jordanian ministry, so it's part of the Jordanian government. And we literally rely heavily on the Hashemite custodianship for the protection of Al-Aqsa Mosque. Sometimes we are aware of what they are doing. Sometimes people are not aware. People are not aware, for example, that they have just they have just renovated the Indonesian part of the Indonesian hospital in the Gaza Strip, and by the end of the month they intend to complete the renovation. I hope that it will not be destroyed again. But this is something that one would highlight. Whenever we have an event, whether it's, for example, during Ramadan, at the end of Ramadan, it's an occasion for Muslims from the Waqf, the Muslim Waqf Council, Muslim scholars, and also the heads of the Christian churches in Palestine and in Jordan. They break fast at the table of His Majesty in Amman. When Pope Francis visited Amman, all of them were seated in the reception of Pope Francis, of course, when he was hosted by His Majesty King Abdullah II. So it does continue to inform our religious sensibility, the Pact of Umar, and this is really, we look forward to a future when we continue to live together. Mind you that we do have a serious Christian immigration really from Palestine to overseas. Their numbers dwindled over the years, but over the years we talk about under occupation. They were a substantial community in Jerusalem. Today their numbers are very, very small. In fact, in the West Bank today they are less than 2%. And as Dr. Bernard Sabella, a Catholic sociologist, he said it's the occupation. That's the elephant in the room.
It's the unmentionable elephant in the room in the West. We don't talk about that in Europe and America, unfortunately. Well, thank you. Have you concluded, do you think? Yeah.
I would say that is essentially, alhamdulillah, the message is clear that we would love that this relationship to be extended to others, but we need to end the occupation first.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Amen to that. Thank you very much, Professor Mustafa Abu Sway, for your time from Jerusalem. It was great to hear the Adhan at the beginning of the video, live from Jerusalem. That was nice to get that on tape, unexpected. So thank you very much indeed for your time. Really appreciate it. Until next time. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.